With Son and Spurs failing to deliver in game week 12, is it worth removing the midfielder from our FPL sides? Starting off today's video, I thought we would take a look at Crystal Palace. They've got some amazing fixtures coming up, arguably the three best fixtures in the league right now. So I'm going to flash them up on screen for you guys to see. It's Luton away next, West Ham away after that, and then Bournemouth at home. It does kind of fall away after that with Liverpool, Manchester City, Brighton and Chelsea. But for the next three, I think if you don't own a Crystal Palace asset or potentially want to try and own one, I think this is the ultimate week to be bringing them in. Obviously, it wasn't the result that they wanted today, but there were definitely some positives and some players I think personally we should be looking at. Starting off, we're going to go for a Beachy EZE, however you want to pronounce it, it's up to you. It's your own world, you live in it. He's back from injury and is firing very well. 2 attacking returns since his injury. In about, I'd probably say about 120 minutes, he's picked up 2 attacking returns, obviously from the spot. Could have had another potential penalty today, and it was so great to see him back. He's so graceful on the ball. Definitely a player who passes the eye test, and with Michael EZE back as well from injury, it makes it a very exciting time to potentially jump on the Crystal Palace bandwagon. Like I said, 1 goal, 1 assist, good expected goal involvement as well from him, 1.28 over the past 5 game weeks, and still only 3.5% owned. I think a lot of us potentially might be looking for Son replacements. EZE could offer himself up as one of those replacements. I think some people might be a little bit frustrated with Matoma as well. If he blanks this week, again, offers himself up. Maybe he didn't take out Maddison as well. I think EZE would be a great little slot there on penalties, which is always what I like to go for. Fits that talisman theory. Again, what I like to identify, these players that take the penalties, take the corners, take the free kicks. So we're going to be picking up bonus points, galore. Obviously with penalties as well, it's a great asset to have in the game, and he looks like he has returned from his injury, banging form with some great fixtures coming up. So definitely, I think if I was needing a midfielder spot, I would be looking to go for EZE, to be honest. I think he's a great pick to potentially have in your side for game week 13. Moving on, we're going to talk about the next two together. It is Anderson and it is GW13. Obviously, the centre-back pairing for Crystal Palace. They do have one of the best XG conceded in the league, despite today's 3-2 result, despite conceding 3 goals at home against Everton. Still one of the best defences in the league and have kept the most clean sheets as well at this point as well. Obviously, GW13 and Anderson as well are right up there, as is Mitchell, but I've excluded him from today's video, as I just don't think attacking returns are something we can expect from these guys. That's not what they're about. So we've gone with Anderson and GW13. They're the 2 most nailed. Very solid centre-back pairing. And I think for me, if I was to buy one of them right now, if you put a gun to my head and went, who are you buying? I would buy GW13, to be honest. If you look at the expected goal involvement, there's not too much to split the two. Definitely not enough for me to justify going for that 0.5 million extra, to be honest. So I think if I was in need of a cheap defender, obviously Ben White was benched today. That's a little bit, throws a little bit of a curveball. Maybe you've got, maybe a Spurs defender. You're not too keen on them. Maybe Van der Veen. I saw a few people had him. Maybe after that performance, you're not too keen on a Doji either. So you want to potentially switch it up. I think Anderson and GW13 for the next 3 definitely offer themselves as really good defensive kind of solutions. And like I said, if a gun was pointed to my head right now, I would go for GW13 over Anderson. Like I said, as you can see on screen, there's not too much to split the two in terms of expected goal involvement. And again, not really justifying that price point, that extra 0.5 million for me. Moving on to the next player. Again, it's another Palace player back from injury. It is Michael EZE. He can rip Premier League defences apart, and he was fantastic to watch at the back end of last season. This was his first game back against Everton. Came on in the 77th minute. So as you can see, his data and all that stuff looks a little bit crap, as these are just from the past 5 game weeks. So no goals, no assists, very little in terms of expected goal involvement, and only 1 point. I think if you wanted to go for a risk this week, I think EZE could be that potential player. Obviously, he's got the international break now to recover, but I think for the next 3, he could be a real gem that people could either, it could go really well and he performs up to the levels that we expected from him last season, or it might take him a little bit of time to potentially integrate himself back into that Palace squad, returning from quite a long injury. I think I would just probably play it safe for that extra 0.3 million and go and get EZE. There isn't too much to split the two at the moment. I think with EZE as well, you're getting that penalties. Obviously, he started today as well and has looked like he has recovered more from his injury. So I think EZE, if I had to, again, pick one of between the two, I think it would be EZE, but I think EZE could be a really good shout. It's just for me, he's only just coming back from injury, so I don't think I'd be too hot on potentially picking him up this game week. So I think I would go for EZE out of the two. Finishing up, the final Palace player that you might want to look at is Odsonne Edouard. Scored today, the first goal for him in the past 5 game weeks, and he's actually got pretty good expected goal involvement. For a player who hasn't really scored many goals over the past 5 game weeks, 2 expected goal involvement with 1 goal. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Obviously, he's not a natural Premier League finisher. He's just not. He's not at that level. I think he'd do extremely well in the Championship. But Premier League, it does seem a little bit of a stretch for him. 5.5 million. Maybe if you are looking for a cheap forward option. You know, I know a few people went with Lyle Foster. Obviously, he's now absent from the game due to some recurring mental health issues. So hopefully, he can get himself back up. But if you are potentially looking for a cheap forward option, I think Odsonne Edouard could offer himself up as a very, very tasty option, to be honest. 5.5 million. Obviously, with the key creators in that team being back, EZE and EZE, I think he is going to get a lot more opportunities created for him. Hopefully can get himself on the score sheet as well for the future game weeks. You would have to back him against Luton and Bournemouth, like I said. So for 5.5 million, 3.7% owned would be a very good differential. For me personally, he's not a player I'm looking to bring into my own team. I think I'd rather stick with a 4.5 million forward. But if your team kind of balances out like that and you need a cheaper forward, I definitely think Odsonne Edouard could be the man. But in terms of ranking them, I'd probably go EZE and then probably Guéhi, Anderson, Edouard and EZE at the bottom if I was to pick any of those players. Let me know down in the comments, are you thinking about potentially bringing in any Crystal Palace players ahead of this next 3 game weeks? This run is absolutely incredible. Let me know down in the comments, and let's move on to our second part of today's video. And finishing up today's video, we're going to take a look at whether you should be selling Son. Obviously, a very highly owned asset so far in FPL, and you know what? He's been delivering, but not in game week 12. Obviously, with the plethora of Spurs injuries, it has meant Son's output was really diminished in today's game. Not only from an eye test, if you looked at the data sets as well that he put up in that game, 0.12, I think, expected goal involvement from him in today's game. Absolutely dismal when we're paying a premium price of 9.7 million, and with arguably a really difficult next 2 fixtures, this is where it poses the question, is it time to potentially drop Son? I think the big thing for me is the lack of quality in that Spurs attack. The injuries, the suspensions have meant that, you know, it just has diminished the quality of opportunities that Son is going to get. We saw that in the data, we saw that in the performance today, and I do think that Maddison injury is going to be a big blow for Spurs, and the Richarlison one as well. At times was bright down that left-hand side and did offer himself as a potential good option that could be rotated around in Postecoglou's side. So I definitely think I'm currently leaning on the fence what to do. I need to see how Aston Villa perform tomorrow. That will kind of make my mind up going into that game. Obviously, it is a home fixture, so you would kind of still have to back Tottenham to do well in that one against Aston Villa. You know, they lost to Forest last week, but again, I need to see how they kind of perform this week to kind of get a gauge of whether or not that was a one-off, or we are seeing a little bit of decline in form from Emery's men. So that one could be a difficult one. Obviously, Villa started the season extremely brightly. Then you've got the Manchester City game, always a tough game, but Son does have a very positive record at the Etihad as well. Always likes to seem to score there. So again, maybe that would suit Spurs. I think it suits his playstyle a little bit better as well when he is kind of backs against the wall, playing on the counter. So for me, I'm umming and ahhing whether or not to sell him, because I do think he does perform extremely well when it's kind of backs against the wall ball, and you know, maybe that's what Ange has got to switch to. Now he hasn't got his main creative players as well from injury, but as you can see, there has been a big drop off in his kind of, not only this week, but the past few weeks as well. 2 goals, 1 assist, 1.55 XG and 1.09, but he's never been a player who's put up amazing in terms of data sets. He's always been a player who's massively overperformed his data, and he's doing that again this season. 17.5 predicted points on the Draft Town model over the next 3 isn't bad. There aren't too many other kind of premium midfielders that are going to be delivering that as well. It is just the fixtures, and it is the lack of creativity and performance today that is definitely making me consider in my own team to potentially sell Son. What I would do with that money is a little bit unclear. I think probably would go Saka is the route I'd go for. You're obviously looking at Arsenal's fixtures, Brentford, Wolves, Luton. That Luton game being absolutely vital. You know, you would be losing Son to West Ham. You know, it's not the worst fixture in the world, but having Saka against Luton could be very, very tasty indeed. So I definitely think that could pose itself as an option. Maybe switching over to Saka, taking Son out for a few weeks, you know, seeing how they get on without, you know, Maddison and the other key players as well, and seeing what Ange can kind of do to get this team firing back in the right direction. So for me personally, I think I want to wait and see how the Villa game goes, see what performance they put in, and then I think I potentially could be swayed to take Son out this week. I'm not a player who's going to be sticking about this season. If I see a bad performance from someone, I'm going to, you know, just be on it straight away. I'm not sitting around waiting for them to get back into form. If Son's not there and the team's not there, then I'm not sticking around and waiting about. I'm going to just do it and get it out the way. But yeah, let me know what your plans are for Son down in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching today, ladies and gentlemen, and we are super close to hitting 2.5k subs. If you want to help me do that, hit that subscribe button, like and comment as well, as I do try to answer every single question in the comments section below. But thank you very much for watching today, and good luck next game week.